Question I get asked all the time, people always want to know, is what camera gear I use to film all these trip videos I do. So today I thought I'd go through all the camera gear I use, and then the other thing people always want to know is how I keep it charged, so I'll go through that after. Now when I'm on the road, pretty much all my camera gear stays in this bag. It's a dedicated camera bag, so it's made to carry camera gear. It's a after the fact camera bag. Most of the stuff, you unzip the back compartment here and then it's all in there. So it's nice and padded, keeps it safe, protected, not going to damage it. Alright, we'll start the first thing, which is GoPros. I was using the GoPro Hero 4 for a fair while. I changed over to the GoPro 7 Black. The Hero 4 was alright, you know, you still got decent footage with it, but you couldn't use it too much. But the GoPro Hero 7 is a big step up. The GoPro 7, I'd say, is the first GoPro that actually has good audio, and the stabilization on it is unreal. I'd say stabilization on this GoPro, because they have this new Hyper Smooth technology, is probably better than my main camera. Very smooth, has really good color. The color is a lot nicer on it, and good sound, so you can actually use it to talk to and do a bit more filming. But you still, people ask me what camera should they get, would a GoPro be good? I don't really think you can film a whole video on a GoPro. You can, people do, but I just find it doesn't look as good when the whole thing is filmed on a GoPro. I think a GoPro are more a limited accessory, like you need to use them in the right time and place. You can't just film everything on GoPro. Everything is so far pulled back, it's got that GoPro look. I just think if you're going to get one camera, you're better off getting a normal, like a proper main camera, or even using your phone. Like if I was to film a whole video, I would film it on my phone before I'd film the whole video on a GoPro. Chargers for the two GoPros. I don't use this one much anymore. From time to time, mainly just use a 7. And this is a tripod stand with a time-lapse feature, so I can do a rotating time-lapse on the GoPro. I haven't really used that too much yet, but I do want to try and do a few more of them. So you'll set it to say 60 minutes, 180 degrees, and it'll do a 60-minute time-lapse as it spins around. The other thing is with the GoPros, you know, I'm doing handheld, particularly I'm using in the water. I'll use this little flotation handheld thing. All the car shots are just on this suction cup car mount, where you just suction it onto the side of the car in any position you want. Alright, the next thing is drones. I actually have two drones now. I'll get the first one out. First drone, Mavic Air, and then the second drone is the Mavic Pro. Mavic Pro, Mavic Air. Why do I have two drones? I had the Mavic Pro. That was the one I used for maybe about a year. That was the first one I used. Now I started having a couple of issues with it. I had a couple of the gimbal issues, where the gimbal was playing up and not working properly. And I realized the actual reason it did that was because I was not putting this stabilizer plate, or whatever you want to call it, which locks the gimbal in when you're not using it. The gimbal was just kind of flapping around everywhere, so it got out of alignment. And I had to send it away to get fixed. It was gone maybe a month, and then I got it back and it broke again. Same thing happened again, so I had to send it away again. I had a couple of big trips planned, so I thought I'll just get the Mavic Air in the meantime. I get asked this question a lot about what drone I have and what drone people should buy. Mavic Pro versus Mavic Air, they're both good drones. They both have their good and bad things. I don't think one is particularly way better than the other one. The Mavic Air is the one I've been using all the time recently on the Great Ocean Road trip, Victorian High Country trip, all the trips over the last few months. I've just been using the Mavic Air. Drones are really good. They give you great angles, like amazing footage. These are both like your smaller drones. They both have a crop sensor. They both really struggle in low light. That's one disadvantage. You can't have to film when conditions are light. You can't film like on dark or early in the morning. Well, you can, but it's just not going to look as nice. The differences between the Mavic Air and the Mavic Pro. Mavic Air is obviously a lot smaller and lighter compared to the Mavic Pro, but this is still a very small drone. You know, the size is not much bigger than your hand, a little bit smaller than your hand. This one has a longer battery life. This is sort of mid-20s, that's low 20s in airtime. Mavic Pro will do better in windy conditions. This is still fine, but it will float around a bit, and it's harder to get stable shots because it will drift offline a bit. This will stay very stable in stronger winds. This can go further. This relies on I think it's a radio signal, whereas this is a Wi-Fi signal. This, you know, can get up to about 1K with this. K distance, still be good after that start to struggle. This is about maybe 2 Ks before you start to struggle. You get a lot more distance out of this one. Now in relation to actual video quality, they are similar. I think the color is a little bit better on the Mavic Air. This one's a little bit sharper and handles contrast a little bit better, meaning if you're in a scene where there's lots going on, like you're in a big rainforest and jungle, with this one it'll still come out quite sharp and clear. This one, it will start to get a little bit soft, and even you kind of call it a little bit blurry. It starts to blend in a little bit together, particularly when you haven't got that really nice sunny light. They're both really good in open conditions, you know, more your open plains, your open beaches, but I do think the color is slightly better on this. If you're gonna get a drone, they're both good. It's not gonna be one's way better than the other. Now with the drones, I have a second battery for the Mavic Pro, which makes it a lot easier because you can fly it, you can put the fresh battery straight in and then it's ready to go again, and you can charge the other one. Mavic Air, I've only got one battery, but you just keep charging it. It hasn't really been a problem for me. I just keep charging it every time I use it. Phone, I do use this time to time. Quickly grab the phone out to do a quick couple of shots. This is the new iPhone, I don't know, iPhone XR maybe. You know, these have pretty good video quality, sound, color, everything. These are a good filming device. Alright, now this is my main camera. This is the one I get asked about the most. The main camera I use, it's a Sony A6300. This is what I was filming all this on before. I've now switched over to my phones. The quality's not going to be as good, but you used to be able to see how the quality is filming this on an iPhone. I still think it's not too bad. Body, Sony A6300. The main lens I'm using on it at the moment, and the one I use generally most of the time, I don't know what you name these lenses, but it's a set aperture of 4. Your lowest aperture you can go is 4, and then it's an 18 to 105, so that's a zoom, so it can zoom from 18mm to 105mm, so that gives that good range. 18mm is still pull back far enough so you can still hold it and talk to the camera, and then 105 means you can get your fair zoom in as well for those further away shots. Just a Rode VideoMic Pro plugged into it. It doesn't require batteries or anything. All you do is plug it into the side, mount it on the top. I think it was like $60–70, and that will step up your sound quality big time. Definitely reckon good quality sound helps a lot. So it's just, that's your microphone, and this is to help reduce wind noise. These are a directional mic, meaning they'll pick up sound in front of the microphone and the camera a lot better than anything behind it. The idea is to reduce your background noise. Really happy with this camera. This is a mid-range Sony camera. I think it's about $1,400 new just for the body, and then you have to buy a lens as well. This lens is $700–800 new. I got it second hand for $300 off my mate. All this camera gear is definitely not cheap. I also have this second, this is the original lens I got with it. This is a bit of a cheaper one, a 16 to 50mm. You know, it's always good to carry a backup lens in case I break this one. This one shoots in 4K, but I normally just shoot in 1080. The only time I actually shoot in 4K is for these interviews. The reason I do that is because you can crop in without losing quality. You can't really crop in very much on 1080. When I'm away on a trip, I just film everything in 1080 at 30 frames per second. Except for the slow-mo shots you see, they're at 120 frames per second, and that's what allows you to slow it right down to basically a quarter speed. If you try and slow down 30 frames per second, it'll be real jolty because there's not enough frames in the image to make it smooth. When I film, I normally just film on the filming setting. I don't manually choose like apertures, shutter speed myself. I just got too much going on without trying to do that for every shot as well. This camera does a very good job if you leave it on automatic. You don't really need to manually do it. It does a great job. Whereas the drones do struggle a bit on auto. I often do the drones on manual, otherwise the shot will often be under or overexposed. But in saying that, the Mavic Air I can trust most of the time. The Mavic Pro is pretty hit and miss. This camera, like I've had salt water cover the whole thing, been dropped that many times. It's been out in the rain, the hot sun, all that, still going strong. In the hot sun, it does struggle with overheating from time to time. That is one thing. Sometimes it will overheat or shut down. You need to give it 10 minutes to cool back down. Here's the phone. I just got it set up on this little tripod thing I got here, wrapped around the main tripod onto the phone. Little phone holder there, good. I think I got this from Officeworks for $10-15. I do use that from time to time. This is the tripod I use, which is a Vanguard, and it's the there's meant to be a V there, VO2 range 265 AB. This tripod's worth a couple $100 I think, but it's a really good tripod, happy with it. You know, tripod's a tripod, but you can get cheap tripods around the $50 range, but if you do go step up to that $150 to $200 range, you're going to get a much better, and when I say better, I mean easier to use, more settings to get your angles better, more stable, and they can just handle the weight better. They're less likely to fall over, set them up better, you know, just better quality equipment. And then obviously you can spend like $500 to $1,000 on extreme ones, but I don't need that for what I'm doing. The other tripod I use time to time is one of these Joby Gorilla Pods that heaps of people use. You know, just a flexible little one. You can use them for your handheld shots, or you can just quickly mount them up anywhere. You can even like wrap them around trees, tree branches and things like that. This is that little phone tripod I got there. I think that just about covers it for my camera equipment. For recommendations, if you were to get a drone, if you really want a drone, I would say either one of these. If I had to pick one, maybe go the Mavic Air. If you're after GoPro, it's definitely worth getting the latest one, a lot better than any of the older ones. So the Sony a6300 is a mirrorless camera. I use it for all my photos and my videos and time lapses. It has a time-lapse setting on it, so I can do all my time-lapses on there. I think they are a really good camera. I'd highly recommend like a mirrorless type camera for around that $1,000 to $1,500 if you want to get into off-road photography and filming. Okay, now when you have all this camera gear, how do you keep it all charged? Obviously this has all got to be charged on the road. So I'll show you how each one is charged, and then I'll show you I'll show you where the plugs are in the car that I use. First thing is your GoPros are charged via USB port. So the Mavic Pro actually have a dedicated charger to charge the battery, so they can plug into a cigarette lighter. But the Mavic Air, I didn't get the car charger with it. That is just a wall mount charger, which is this one here into your wall, your 24 volt socket. 24 volt socket is what I need to use to charge the Mavic Air and my laptop. Everything else is either USB or 12 volt socket. Now to charge the 24 volt, I have this little inverter. So it's a 150 watt inverter. Now this is a modified sine wave inverter, which I do not recommend. This is what you're not meant to use. When it comes to equipment like laptops, camera gear, you're meant to use a pure sine wave inverter, and I think they recommend a minimum of 300 watts. So this is a 150 watt modified sine wave inverter. This plugs into your cigarette lighter, and then you plug your power point into it and charge whatever you need to charge. I think this is only like $50 or $60. That's why I got it. This is much cheaper than getting a proper inverter setup, which I can't afford. That's why I got this one. Now the main camera, that's the most important thing to keep charged. I bought this, which is, I don't know, ProCube. It fits 2 batteries in it, so I have 3 batteries for my main camera. That way I can have 1 going and 2 charging. So slot in there, plug this in, and then you've got yourself a 12 volt charger. Phone is USB charge as well. So most of these things are 12 volt or USB charge with a couple of 24 volt things. Now let's have a look at what I have in my car to use those charging methods. The biggest thing I can say with charging your equipment is be vigilant. Don't wait until everything is dead and out of battery and then be like, oh, I need to charge my equipment, and then you miss an hour worth of shots. I just keep charging my equipment as I go. I charge it through the day. You know, my GoPro gets down to half battery. I just plug it in while I'm driving, and then it can build up a bit more. Same my camera batteries, drone batteries, just keep them all charging. I keep things charged during the day, but then overnight is when I get everything back up to 100%. Each night I make sure everything is fully back up to 100% and charged. And that's when my campsite looks like a power station with cords and cameras and batteries in all directions. The first thing I have, nice and simple, is in there a USB port on my fridge. This is my dual battery system. At the moment, the only port I have on it is a 12 volt outlet and then a voltage meter. But that 12 volt and the USB off the fridge, so they're both run off my dual battery, that's enough at night to camp to keep everything going, because my fridge is run off a Anderson plug. Now in my car while I'm driving, I got quite a few spots in here, which is good being a modern car. They normally have more places to charge things. Down the front there I have a USB port which I can use to charge things while I'm driving, and a 12 volt socket there to charge things while I'm driving. I also have another 12 volt socket up here, but that normally runs the VMS sitting there. And there's also another 12 volt socket in your armrest thing here. I've just plugged a couple of things in now just to give you a bit of an example of what it looks like at my camp at night. So I probably have my phone going off my fridge there charging. And then I'll have my inverter plugged into my cigarette lighter there. I've got the drone lead plugged into the inverter, which is mainly to charge the battery, but then this drone plug actually has two USB ports on it as well. So I'm able to charge the GoPro and the controller too. So that way I'm getting like 3 or 4 things charged up at once. Alright, and then the last thing is storing all this footage. Every day I get a lot of footage. Every day, you know, it's common for me to get up to 100 gigabytes of footage a day. I get a lot of footage. So every night at camp I'll sit down with my laptop, get all my memory cards and everything out. I use hard drives. These are 2 terabyte hard drives. They're not huge, but I just get smaller ones just in case you lose one or something. You don't lose everything, and these are only like 80 or 90 bucks for 2 terabytes, which is 2,000 gigabytes. Both drones have a micro SD card in them, 32 gigabytes. My GoPro 7 has a micro SD card, 64 gigabytes. The main camera has a normal SD card at 128 gigabytes, so that will cover me for the whole day. But every night at camp I do need to sit down, get everything charged, get all the footage off it all, reset it, back it up, all ready for the next day. So that is something you have to remember when you're doing this filming. You know, half hour to an hour at camp every night dealing with all this. So the laptop I carry with me on the trips. You need that to back up all your footage, get all your things off. I use this to edit as well. MacBook Pro. What I'll do is I'll plug a hard drive in and I'll show you how I store everything, because you really need to be vigilant with backing up, storing everything, clearing it all, getting ready for the next day, making sure you got all your footage saved. This is my most recent hard drive, 2019. You know, I put the year on them. This one's got 2018 on them. I'll go through 2 or 3 of these a year, you know, 4 to 6 terabytes of footage a year. Alright, here we are in the hard drive. Go 2019. Here's the trips I've done so far this year. We're going to a big one like the high country. Here it all is. Photos separately on their own, and then it's all categorized into days with where I was on each of these days. If we go Davies Plain, then we got the main camera footage, the drone footage, drone photos, and the GoPro. You go in there, it's all there. You know, it's much easier if you do it all this way when it comes to editing. You got it all saved, you know where it all is. I know this video wouldn't have been entertaining for everyone. It's more so if you are into camera equipment and filming or a bit of interest in it. Any questions, just ask me in the comments and I'll try and answer them. One last thing I'll add in is I'm not an expert, have no qualifications whatsoever. I made all this up as I went. I got into four-wheel driving 3 to 4 years ago, and then I got into the filming part of it a couple years ago. Actually, I used to watch Ronnie Dahl and another guy, Stefan Fischer, I think it is. I found them on YouTube when I got into four-wheel driving. I just used to watch, like, particularly Ronnie Dahl, I used to watch all his videos all the time. I just used to think it was so cool and I wish I could do that. On one of the trips, it's like the first video on my YouTube channel, a trip I did to Moreton Island and Sundowner National Park. I took my phone and this tiny little tripod. I kept setting it up, filming the scenes, and from there I just slowly built up and got into it. So I've just kind of learned all this as I've gone, made it all up. This is not necessarily the best equipment or the best way to do it. This is just what I've learned, what I've made up as I've went, and what I'm using that works for me. And I think that's the thing with filming. You don't need the best of every equipment. If you were to get one thing, my advice would be to get a DSLR camera or mirrorless camera, like just a main camera. You can get a cheap one for, you know, $500–600, get a little lens, a little microphone for it. With a tripod, use that. I know that is a bit of money, but that would be my advice. Other than that, use your phone. If you have a decent phone, use that. And just practice. Learn the angles, learn where to set up, how to do it, get a bit of practice in editing. Don't try and get the best and greatest of everything. Start off small and just build up from there, and you'll learn as you go. You'll learn what you need, you'll learn what works for you. You know, I'll slowly keep building up over time, but it's very expensive. I've already spent several thousands of dollars on all this equipment. I don't know where I'd be at now, you know, good five grand at least. Upgrades, I'd love to get the DJI Mavic 2 Pro. It's a 1-inch full frame sensor, a lot better color, image clearness, better in low light, much better drone. I love that. And the other upgrade would be the main camera, upgrade to the higher range of Sony cameras, you know, like an A7R3, A7S2 I think it is, those high range of mirrorless cameras. I'd love to upgrade, but they're very expensive. Won't be anytime soon, maybe one day. And the last thing with these main camera, I shoot with Sony, love it. I think Sony are amazing. They're definitely up there at the top now, but they're all good. Don't stress about what brand. They're all pretty good these days. Canon, Nikon, Sony, Panasonic, I don't know, all the top brands. They're all good cameras. I'm going to stick with Sony for the moment.